The first time I ever heard about virtual assistant was with Tim Ferriss's book, 4-Hour Workweek. What's the differentiator between a virtual assistant and executive assistant?
This is a high-level, peer-type relationship. They can begin to anticipate. They look around the corner. They take proactive action on your behalf, and that's where the magic happens.
She goes, hey, I was looking at your calendar. You need a hotel for the night before, right? She knows I'm not going to get up at 3 a.m. to get ready and drive 2 hours to Nashville to catch a 7:20 flight. I don't have to burn any energy or mental bandwidth to solve that issue that I haven't even thought of yet.
Who is the ideal candidate for an executive assistant?
An entrepreneur that's growth-minded and looking to reach new levels of freedom and growth.
We had a client who was so stressed. He had this habit of rubbing his temple. And we didn't realize this at the time, but there was a bald spot there. We come and check in with him at the 6-month mark with his assistant, and the hair is regrown. We're adding an additional line of business, hair regrowth expert.
Look out, Keeps.
I dreaded training them.
That's the biggest thing in my head is like, what do they do? What do I tell them to do?
My hand was held throughout the entire process, and it really took all the pressure off of figuring out how to do it myself.
You end up doing more.
She schedules my haircuts. She schedules my date night with the wife. She schedules my trips with my kids that I take.
But that more is more of what your unique ability is.
I had to get to the point where I was willing to give up control. And because I've done it, I'm free to do the things I'm best suited to do.
Don't settle for faux freedom. And it just kills me. I see these entrepreneurs that really aspire for great things, and they have all the capability in the world, but somewhere along the way, they settle.
Don't let broken promises and burnout stop you from achieving what your dreams are in your business. We talk so often to folks who are at the lowest of the lows because they feel like they're letting everyone, including themselves, down. It doesn't have to be that way.
The relationship I have with Alice is the single highest leverage relationship I have, especially on the business side, and surprisingly more than I anticipated on the personal side. This episode is sponsored in part by the Massimo Group. Are you a commercial real estate broker looking to boost your business? The Massimo Group is the world's premier coaching organization, transforming the careers of brokers just like you, just like it did for me. Visit www.massimo-group.com today to get started and take your career to the next level. This episode is also brought to you by Site to Do Business, commercial real estate's most advanced toolkit, providing commercial real estate professionals like me with premier data, mapping, and marketing tools to win business and revolutionize decision-making. Visit stdb.com to learn more.
Welcome to Commercially Speaking. I'm Timmy Barron, ADHD.
And I'm Bo Barron, CCIM.
And this is the Commercial Real Estate Investing Podcast where my brother Bo, who's an expert CCIM instructor, owner, and director of Barron Commercial Group, teaches me everything about commercial real estate and commercial real estate investing and everything around it. I'm an actor comedian. So from the very beginning, I knew nothing, but I know so much more now.
You're no longer the idiot.
No, I'm no longer an idiot.
Commercially speaking.
Commercially speaking,
yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, what do we got today, Bo?
We have the co-founders of Superpowers HQ.
Yeah.
Which we're very familiar with here because they are how I have Alice.
That's right. That's right.
Who's my executive assistant. And yeah, we've got Stephen Neuner and Ryan Cassin here today. And so we're going to talk about Superpowers. They've got a brand new book that just came out called Superpowered.
Superpowered.
Which I've read most of over the weekend. And
so this is all about like a virtual assistant, executive assistant, getting one of those.
Alice is virtual, but she's very much my executive assistant.
Gotcha.
And it was really interesting, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, as I was reading through their book, how they differentiate, what an executive assistant really is.
Right.
And it really kind of gave me the language to talk about how she's had such an impact on me, my life, our business, even this podcast.
Right.
So I'm really excited to jump in here and talk about it. So fellas.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Glad to be here, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sweet. Well, let's jump into it real quick. Steven, Ryan, either one of you can start, but just give me a brief background of you personally and what led you to Superpowers and what you do today.
While many things I've done in my entrepreneurial career have been super intentional, I'm going to aim the gun at a target. I'm going to point. I'm going to laser focus in. I'm going to shoot at it. Superpowers was one of those things where we were just helping people Ryan and I were both entrepreneurs in an entrepreneurial community, and we both experienced the incredible blessing of having a really great executive assistant relationship. And so much so that people asked for, they asked for help because they wondered what we had. And so we started helping, and that helping then eventually became an idea for a business. So we did this for free with hundreds of entrepreneurs, probably, if you count the ripple effect, before we ever charged a dime for what we're doing.
Yeah. So when did you all meet? When did this idea happen?
So Stephen and I met through Entrepreneurs Organization, the chapter here in Dallas. We both served on the board together and became fast friends. But like you said, we were in completely separate businesses. I had a political consulting sort of digital marketing agency at the time. He was in insurance previously. And we had both, we have two very distinct stories of how we found our original executive assistant. Stephen will tell you his, but it involved a little bit more difficulty, a little bit more intervention, shall we say. Mine, I had just joined Strategic Coach, actually on the recommendation of Stephen. And in the first session of Strategic Coach, they talk about the value of a strategic assistant. That's their term for this sort of executive assistant role. And I thought, okay, I'm in for Strategic Coach. I am hook, line, and sinker. I want to learn more about it. And if they tell me I need a strategic assistant, I'm going to go get one. And so I did what I think a lot of entrepreneurs did, which is ask friends, hey, do you know anybody? Is there anybody you think would be good for this? Could you give me a referral on somebody? And I got so wildly lucky to find Amber, and we were such a good pair, and we worked so well together. But like Stephen said, that is not the natural, way things go for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's a really hard role to hire for. And if you've done it well, if you find your Amber, you never want to hire for this role again. So you don't ever build any muscle memory. You don't get any real experience doing it. And so we realized that this is something that we could help other entrepreneurs with. And we're super passionate about entrepreneurship and what's possible when entrepreneurs are unleashed. And so we created Superpowers together. He had sold his business. I had sold mine. We said, hey, let's do more of this. This is fun. This is serving the people we really love and unleashing them to achieve new levels of freedom and growth, which is what Superpowers is all about. And so that's kind of the high level story. The book is very much in the same spirit. We want to help entrepreneurs build this relationship with intentionality. And so we created this book with Shannon Waller from Strategic Coach called Superpowered, the secret that helps every entrepreneur eliminate the suck, 10x their impact, and have more fun in work and life. And it has been just an absolute blast. We had tons of fun creating it. We've had tons of great stories that we learned from other entrepreneurs along the way. It's been just an amazing journey.
Eliminate the suck. I love that.
I knew you'd like that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That's why I got in it. That's the phrase.
Yeah.
That got me, what is it? Eliminate the suck.
Yeah.
But that's why I wanted an executive assistant, was to eliminate all the things I just hated to do.
Right.
What happened after that was everything about my life got better. Right. And we can talk about this some more, but like
we will. I am curious before we jump really into that, because Stephen, was you getting an executive assistant as simple and as lucky as Ryan?
I would say mine was probably simpler, but harder to get to it. So I joined Strategic Coach, started seeing incredible unlocks just from the from all the incredible thinking and entrepreneurs that were pouring into me in that program. But there was one thing I was really resistant to, and that was the idea of, and they call it strategic assistant, an executive assistant for this conversation. And quite honestly, it got to the point I kept hiring for people on our team. Our team was really growing. We're starting to see a lot of fruit. And my team staged an intervention. So they literally came and they're like, hey, man, Stephen, we love you. And we really appreciate that you want to take care of us and, add to the team. But you're literally the bottleneck on everything. and quite honestly, some of them are kind of annoyed because I didn't hire my CFO to be an executive assistant, but people were pitching in to fill holes that I had to just keep the team running and keep us moving towards our goal. So once they had that intervention, there was really not much I could say after that. They helped me get over that hump, make that commitment. And they staged the auditions. They did, all the things to really find first assistant, which was just absolutely amazing. And then the rest is history.
You know, the first time I ever heard about the word or the term virtual assistant, right, or the idea behind it was with Tim Ferriss's book, 4 Hour Workweek. And I'd assume a lot of people might be in the same boat. First of all, what is the difference or what's the differentiator between a virtual assistant and executive assistant?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think a lot of people, because there's so many places to be able to go get talented folks who can help, take things off your plate, right? And so it all kind of gets fuzzy really, really quickly. For us, we've developed what we call sort of the 3 Ps framework. And this helps, I think it helps connect the dots for folks, because when people say virtual assistant, that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean $4 an hour talent. It can mean $25 an hour talent, right? It's such a wide band that I don't think it's particularly useful as a filtering mechanism. And so our 3 Ps are project assistant. So if you have a long-term project and, this is somebody who could, be that additional person on your team, and it could even be a full-time hire, right? But it's for the website, or it's for graphic design, or editing a podcast, right? It's a specialist who completes narrowly focused tasks with a really clear objective. The next is a process assistant. So if we go up to the next level, the process assistant is someone who, and I think this is really where virtual assistants live, is this process assistant phase. This is where you've got a really clearly defined process, start to finish. Here are the inputs, here are the expected outputs. I need a human automation in the middle part, right? I need someone to run all the different steps to be able to get to to drive to the outcome I'm looking for. So that's, in our mind, a virtual assistant. And then an executive assistant, that's the 3rd P. That's the proactive assistant. So this is a high-level relationship where this person is a partner with you, and they have the knowledge, context, experience with you and your work style, where they can begin to anticipate. They look around the corner. They take proactive action on your behalf. They act with your authority. They have agency in the relationship. And that's where the magic happens. That's where a true executive assistant arrives, and you're saying, wow, how do we work together to drive toward the outcome that we want, where the entrepreneur achieves new levels of freedom and growth, but their business is running better, their family life is better, things are running smoother, people are more connected internally. That's the role that an executive assistant is more capable of playing.
Gotcha. And so at Superpowers, that's the one the proactive assistant, the executive assistant, that is what you all specialize in. You're not offering those other options.
That's right. We live exclusively in the executive assistant space because we know entrepreneurs inside and out. We are the entrepreneurs ourselves. We know what a great executive assistant relationship looks like. That's what we want to create for others, and that's it.
Let me give you an example.
Okay, great.
Right before everybody logged on, it was me and Alice. So
yes.
Alice is my executive assistant.
And she's still here, right?
Yeah,
yes.
she's our producer on the podcast, so she's here in the wings, making sure if anything breaks, she can fix it. Hi, Alice. Before anybody logged on, she's like, hey, I was looking at your calendar for next week. I'm going to Seattle to teach 102 next week. And so I'm flying up there Sunday morning. And my flight leaves at 7:20 a.m. from Nashville. She goes, hey, I was looking at your calendar. Do you need a hotel for the night before, right? You're going to go the night before?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. She's like, all right, I got you.
Yeah, anticipating your needs.
I didn't have to ask for that.
Right.
Like, she knows me well enough at this point. She knows I'm not going to get up at 3 a.m. to get ready and drive 2 hours to Nashville to catch a 7:20 flight. She knows I'm not going to do that. Right. I don't have to burn any energy or mental bandwidth to solve that issue that I haven't even thought of yet. Right. She handled it.
Wow.
So it's like, and I love the phrase, and you guys use it in the book a couple of different times, the idea of looking around the corner. Yeah. For me. Right. I stinking love. I mean, she does that for me all the time. And it allows me to not have to burn any energy with that stuff. Right. Or be surprised and derailed by any of that stuff that I don't anticipate coming around the corner at me that I'm going to have to deal with if somebody else doesn't. Yeah, that's extremely, and you've said too that you've maybe gotten an extra 10 hours a week? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. So with the executive assistants, right, are they all virtual through Superpowers?
Every one of our executive assistants is in the Philippines. We started we thought that the pandemic was a great opportunity for us to hire exclusively US based. That's where we were born. And it was so funny because Superpowers was being supported internally by a team of executive assistants in the Philippines, but that we were delivering these US-based executive assistants who work remotely. And what we found is that the skills fit, the culture fit, the career fit of working with the Philippines-based executive assistants was just so much better for our clients and for our businesses, right? I think that there's a mistake or a misperception that executive assistant is this stepping stone position, right? That it is too often conflated with secretary, I think, in the US context, right? This is a high level peer type relationship. You're the boss, but the assistant actually leads in the relationship. Though your story is perfect. Alice led in the relationship in that moment, right? And so we wanted to work with folks who understood that this was part of their career trajectories, that this was a great opportunity for them as well. And it's just been phenomenal working with our team in the Philippines. We're so proud and so grateful for them.
Now, this was a hurdle for me because I had a part-time executive assistant who was in South Carolina before I had Alice through another company.
Right.
And it was just okay. It was, as you guys describe it, I had a process assistant and I would direct and she would execute.
Yeah.
And she executed just fine, but nothing flowed back up. Like, she did not lead me. She didn't hold me accountable. She just did what I told her to do.
Right.
And I still had to think for everything, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I joined Strategic Coach, Stephen is my coach in Strategic Coach. So I get to go up there once a quarter and hang out with him for a day and a bunch of other awesome people. And I heard about Superpowers. Funny enough, I don't remember it wasn't from you. Like, he never promotes himself in any way. So I heard about it some other way. And I was thinking, all right, if my first attempt at getting an executive assistant was just okay, and now I'm trying to implement all these strategic coach things that I was trying to teach to my executive assistant that I had at the time.
Right.
But that was another thing I had to do.
Right.
So I was like, man, if there's my coach for strategic coach has co-founded this company that does, and he teaches them all the strategic coach stuff. And then now that person can help me implement and hold me accountable to all that stuff. Like, that sounds pretty great.
Right.
And then I found out in the Philippines. So here's what I thought in my head automatically. I was like, okay, language barrier, time barrier. I've worked swing shifts before when I was in the Marine Corps.
Right.
Like, I've done the 11 to 7 a.m. shift.
Sure.
For over a year one time. Like, rotating on and off, and I hated it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I didn't know about cultural fit, language issues, just putting somebody in a position where they're going to be working when I'm working, so they're up all night. And so I remember the first time I met Alice, it was Amber introducing me to Alice. I think Amber's like their chief happiness officer or something like that. She's the one who kind of coordinates the matches.
Ryan, is this your Amber? Or is this a different Amber?
That is your Amber?
That's well spotted. That is exactly what happened.
I didn't know that.
And there we go.
Story.
Well, Amber's great. So we're there, and I was asking Alice, I was listening to how well she speaks English, and she speaks English much more correctly than my Kentucky version of English.
Sure.
You know, so that was right off the bat, that was not an issue. But I remember asking her, like, do you want to work all night? And her answer was, I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was basically like, look, a lot of our country does that.
Yeah.
And it fits right into what we're used to doing.
Right.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And man, and then just culturally speaking, to your point, like, if I were to hire an executive assistant here in person, there is that connotation of secretarial, like lowly position in the company kind of thing. I've never got that feel from Alice at all. It's always been like, she's my partner in helping me create a better future.
Right.
And it's just fantastic.
On that, like, Ryan and Steven, what are some of those, but like Bo just explained some of the pain points that kind of stopped him, or he had hesitation before going in. But what are some of those common pain points and misconceptions that people have when they think of hiring what you all actually provide?
So oftentimes what we find is, while the entrepreneur may have someone in person, that person is still remote to them. Because a lot of times the entrepreneur, if the assistant relationship is working, they're out and about right? So that person ends up being remote to them. Secondly, we see a lot of times if you do get it right and you have someone in person, they often collect the tasks around the office. They become the catch-all instead of supporting you and looking around the corners for Bo. Now they're helping hiring and HR, and because they're nice, they're friendly, they want to be supportive. It's in their nature, right? A really great executive assistant. And therefore, it's really easy for them to get really, really bogged down with stuff and then no longer be able to have the capacity to look around the corners for both.
Okay.
And then the third one I see is it's just can be a distractor, right? So by having an executive assistant there, a lot of entrepreneurs, they live the process verbally. They get all this, sales energy or conversational energy. And so they get a big idea. They go talk to their executive assistant and they have this whole conversation. This is where we're going to go, rah, rah, rah. And then they feel like they've actually accomplished something for the day, right? But the truth is they've done nothing, very little in regards to doing the things that drive them towards their bigger future, right? And so that's why, just jumping off a little bit more and other things we see around this idea of, virtual, I wanted to just debunk a few of those things.
Okay.
Here's another thing, and I wonder if this is normal with some of the people that you serve, but one of the things that held me back a little bit was the idea that it wasn't in their book, they used the phrase like it's a luxury, not a necessity, it's a luxury kind of thing. I wasn't exactly in that space, and I wasn't really in the space that I didn't deserve it. I did have in the back of my mind, if I'm being honest, that the rest of the team might resent me or think I'm a little, Bo's getting big in the britches. He's got this executive. I did have a little bit of that in the back of my mind. Do you see that in some of the other entrepreneurs that you serve?
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's I think that comes from a really good place, just fundamentally, right? It comes from the mindset that as the leader of the team, I want to make sure that the team is taken care of before I ever get to myself, right? It's sort of, it manifests, I think, as servant leadership. It's always interesting because the entrepreneur, in many cases, in a lot of businesses, is that catalyst role that helps grow the company to the next level, that helps create the new opportunity for the rest of the organization. You, by growing the organization, don't just improve your lot in life, you're creating a bigger organization for people who are on your team to realize their visions and their goals and their ambitions, right? And so I think it is critically important that entrepreneurs have the space and the team around them to build. And entrepreneurs are really bad about following the advice that you put your mask on before helping others, right? But we hear it every time we take off, on a plane. We got to put our mask on before helping others. And oftentimes what we see is people who are at the last straw. And one of the things we talk about in the book is sort of this scale that you're on as an entrepreneur, from completely resigned and super stressed to transformative change and being super powered, right? And we're all at different points in this journey. We go up and we go down it. But we often talk to a lot of folks who are at the lowest stage. They're resigned. They'd rather give up than continue on. They don't know what to do next. They're completely devoid of any creative energy. And they're looking at the possibility of 10x, failure in their business as opposed to 10x growth and opportunity in their business. And so we think that this is one of those really critical roles that helps an entrepreneur be able to get on that path to 2x and 10x growth. But I think it comes from a good place. It always comes from a good place when we talk to folks about it. Sure. But they are also, by the time they're talking to us, they've often realized, look, we can't keep going on the way it has been.
Who is the ideal candidate for an executive assistant, and when should somebody when should somebody pull the trigger on that process of getting one?
That's a great question. So I'll give you two ways that we look at it. The first is, does the size of your business warrant adding an executive assistant at this time? Because remember, we've got project assistants, we've got process assistants. There's a lot of additional people we could potentially bring into the team that would be better fits for a growing company. And so typically, historically, $1 million seems to be in revenue, seems to be one of those inflection points where as you're approaching it or you passed it, it starts to become part of the conversation.
Okay.
The key is not so much the revenue, but it's that person really shouldn't be the only other professional on your team. It is a rare find where you don't have any other resources professionally, colleagues, partners, whatever it is. You're relying on everything in this person. And what we find is that entrepreneurs try to clone themselves. Well, if I could find an assistant who could close the deal, prospect for new business, write the process, deliver the service, and also collect the AR, then all my problems would be solved and I'd be able to do what I want. I'd be able to pursue my dreams in this business. And that's a disaster waiting to happen. The second mindset piece that we often have to change is, we catch people at this weird time, right? There are the people who are early in their entrepreneurial careers where they don't want to make any investment at all, right? Everything is, how much can I extract out of this business? There's no investment mindset. Well, of course, you're not going to hire an executive assistant in that case. You'll never understand the leverage opportunity. We get people where they're ready to make the money investment. They say, I'm going to spend X number of dollars and it's going to be positive ROI for me. And that's great. But where you've really got to get is the time investment. You have to understand you have to slow down so you can go faster in the future. It means you need to pour into this relationship. And that's what we're really thoughtful and intentional about building. We've got a really, really hands-on onboarding process to set you up for success. But we shift people when we talk to them initially from the money investment mindset to let's set expectations around the time investment as well, so you can get the result you really want.
Well, let's talk about that onboarding process, because that was a almost completely positive experience to me. I was surprised at how well it worked. And again, I had that other part-time US-based virtual assistant before.
Right.
And their process was okay. And I was expecting something along the lines of that again. But tell us a little bit about that process, because this was another thing, like pulling the trigger to bring somebody on that could make my life better in just about all aspects of my life. I dreaded traiing them,
right,
and getting them there.
Right. That's the biggest thing in my head is like, what do they do? What do I tell them to do? All this, how do I decide what to delegate? How do I trust this person? Like all those things. Yeah. So I want to do it. I want to pull the trigger, and it's time. So yeah, walk us through that onboarding process. What does that look like?
In a perfect world, you've hired once for this role and you never hired for it again, right? You've got your executive assistant for life. It's amazing. So have you developed the personality profiling? Have you developed the job description that's up to date? Have you developed the pool of candidates? Have you interviewed 100 to 1, which is our ratio of candidates to actual hires? Like genuinely, it sounds like such a round number, but we constantly look at this number and it's like 98 to 102 candidates to every one hire. You don't have any of the pipeline side of it, right? And that's one of the big challenges that we talk about in the book, how to build some of those things. And if you want to sort of self-implement this. But then the challenge is exactly what you guys touched on. What's the curriculum, coaching, and community look like to be able to support this person with intentionality and grow the relationship? So we thought we were getting in the business of coaching up executive assistants and helping them be the best they could be. And turns out we got into the business of coaching up entrepreneurs and how they can be the most effective delegators and get the most out of this relationship, right?
Wow.
And so what we're doing is we're looking at the first 90 days, the magic moment, the first quarter of building this relationship together. And in the first 30 days, it's all about know you, right? Does this person know your business, your key clients, your spouse, your kids' names, the other people on the team and their roles and responsibilities? Do they just know the stuff about you? Because if they do, then in the next 30 days, so at the 60-day mark, they could understand you. That's where shared context and vocabulary come in, right? So when you say, email Bo about that one project, your assistant knows, oh, I'm going to email Bo Barron, and it's going to be about the commercial real estate deal that we're working on together, okay? But like it's easier. The friction in the communication is starting to go down. And then at the 90-day mark, what we're looking for is anticipate you. Because if your assistant knows you and understands you, they can anticipate what your needs are and take that proactive action on your behalf. And once they know, understand, and anticipate you, they can lead you in the relationship where you're the boss, but they're bringing you forward. They're proactively leading in that relationship. So we're there along the way, coaching and developing and pushing proactively the resources that your assistant needs to make sure that we're really building that relationship thoughtfully and in a way that you need it to grow.
Gotcha. So even before that, like what's the first thing I do? I go to superpowershq.com and I set up a call.
That's it. Yeah. Yep. Super simple. Steven, I'll let you talk about the discovery call we did.
Yeah. So the discovery call is really fun because it's actually one of those areas where we get referred. Not everyone's a fit for Superpower. So oftentimes people go through this process and they actually aren't a right fit, and we help them get in a good position, go down the road. And they'll maybe get an in-person assistant or an assistant somewhere else, maybe a process assistant. But oftentimes we find that we still get referred by those same people because of the value that's created through the process. And so what we do is we just help the entrepreneur get really, really clear on that future. Because oftentimes entrepreneurs forget, especially when they're finding us, they're so mired in the stuff, they've actually forgotten their vision and they've forgotten what stands in the way. And so we take them through a process called a discovery call where we help them get really crystal clear on that, help them expand their vision for even what's possible with an executive assistant, and then help them figure out what the key roadblocks are that need to be removed to get them going in the right direction. It's all value creation. They get a summary. They get everything delivered all on a tidy bow. And for some, it's the clarity they need to take action somewhere else. And we love doing that for people as well. And for others, it's like, man, I found my source. I just need to hit the go button,
Yeah.
Here's what I remember. My initial call was with Ryan.
Yeah.
Are you still doing those, Ryan?
I am, yes.
Okay.
And we've got a growing team doing those as well. So it's become a team effort, I'm pleased to say.
Nice.
Good. So
nice.
I have that call with Ryan, and I wasn't ready yet. So I ended up being a number of months, and I think we had another call, or I reached back out and I was like, all right, I think I'm ready to pull the trigger. So pull the trigger, and then they have me take an assessment. I forget what's that called. It's some kind of assessment where they're really
Predictive
learning.
index.
Yeah, predictive index. They're learning me, my personality, how I operate, more about the business. And this gives them a lot of material that they can use to find a great match for me.
Oh.
And then they go
matchmakers.
searching for the perfect EA for me. And I also remember doing an interview, I believe it was with Amber, where she kind of walked me through the results of that. And really kind of like we've got a sister named Cody. She was on a previous episode. She's a Myers-Briggs consultant, or she was previously. And so, man, she can read people's mail once she types them. But once she, she'll have you take an assessment, and then she goes through it with you and really nails it down. And I remember that with Amber doing that.
Like in a business context, or?
Yeah, we got on a call. She went through that predictive index that assessment, and made sure that she understood with clarity about me, how I work, how our business works, what we do, all that stuff. And then she was able to go find a great match. Amber kind of introduced us. Like, it really was sort of a matchmaker kind of thing. Had a couple calls with me and Alice, and then she would check in with me fairly regularly early on. And then, once we got to 90 days, she was like, y'all are good, go change the world kind of thing.
Right.
But it was, my hand was held throughout the entire process. And I think somewhere around 60 days or something, they put Alice through a lot of the strategic coach stuff. So she understood what I meant when I said free, focus, and buffer days, and when we need to fill out an impact filter, and why I'm sending her my weekly planner on Monday mornings. And like, she understood all that and could help me implement and hold me accountable to continue to use those thinking tools and other tools. So, it was almost like their process was anticipating what I needed. Yeah. And I didn't have to figure it out. Like, I didn't have to recreate the wheel. I didn't have to do any of that. I just sort of followed their lead, and it really took all the pressure off of figuring out how to do it myself.
Right. Can you all talk about that a little bit? Because when I'm thinking about this, I don't know how big strategic coach is. I've heard it because Dad did it, and a lot of your peers do it. Of course, very, very beneficial to a lot of entrepreneurs. But if I'm not involved with strategic coach, is this ideal for me to jump in with Superpowers? Like, talk a little bit about the integration of strategic coach and how that can help even people who aren't in it. And
so, strategic coach is how we met Bo, right? And how we met you guys, or Bo heard of us. Like I said, I don't promote when I'm in front of the workshop, but it is an entrepreneurial coaching program. It is the premier entrepreneurial coaching program in the world.
Okay.
And so we really feel honored when we get to support strategic coach clients, because they often come in with healthier mindsets when it comes to executive assistants. But we have many clients that are not in strategic coach. And in regards to who's a client, what I would say is it's an entrepreneur that's growth minded and looking to reach new levels of freedom and growth. And if those are the things that are important to them, we have the curriculum, coaching, and community to help them do what Bo said, not just find that perfect match, get the clarity I talked about, then find the perfect match, but literally take them through that know that you, understand you, anticipate you, that crawl, walk, run process, and really get that relationship up and running. And so that's what we've built. And for us, it's just a cherry on top when we get to send someone back to strategic coach after 90 days, when Bo's like, yes, Alice is great. Then we make an additional investment in them so that they can get all the languaging and everything to really support Bo at the next level.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds beyond just getting an executive assistant. You are real. It's almost like you're hiring a coach at the beginning, right? It's almost like those discovery calls and the predictive index. They're helping you to really hone in on what your goals are, what are you doing, and moving forward, and then even teaching you and training you some of those strategic coach principles and things to put you on the same language and the same page as whoever they're going to match you with.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying, and that was actually a hard discovery, because before we were ever a formalized business, we were mentoring entrepreneurs, executive assistants. Amber, our chief happiness officer, Ryan, was our first mentee. My assistant Fern mentored Amber, and Ryan was above the pack. But as that continued, we started mentoring other entrepreneurs. What we would notice is, they would delegate down to the person thinking all the work's crap, so I'm going to send all the crap work to the person and really diminish the role. We started seeing all these patterns, and that's when we realized that we really needed to work on the mindsets of the entrepreneur to help them get the most of that relationship. And so that's how we got into the coaching part of the business. Coach is just an affiliation for us that's really important to us, but we have the curriculum to get people through that process, even if they're not any part of strategic coach.
Wow.
And here's where I'd kind of like to go next, because this was kind of the biggest aha moment for me. As a commercial real estate broker, your success depends on the right strategies and guidance. The Massimo Group, the world's top coaching organization for brokers, can help you scale your business and increase your income. And as a former client, I've personally experienced how their coaching can transform not only your career, but also your life. Don't wait to grow. Head to www.massimo-group.com today and see how their proven systems can work for you. This episode is also brought to you by Site to Do Business, the ultimate commercial real estate data analysis and mapping tool. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, Site to Do Business provides the data and insights you need to make informed decisions and close deals faster. Frankly, it's the tool that I use the most in my business. Access comprehensive market analysis, demographic data, and powerful mapping tools like ArcGIS, Placer AI, and Flood Maps all in one place. Identify the best locations for your clients, analyze market trends, and present your findings with confidence. Don't miss out on this game-changing platform. Visit stdb.com today and see how it can optimize your business. And now back to the show. How do you do this well? Like, okay, I'm the entrepreneur. Now I've got Alice. Like, how do I work with her well?
Right.
And not do what he was just describing and just delegate down all the crap work that I hate.
Right. How do you get the most out of the tool that you have?
How do we do that?
I think it's a mindset shift. And Stephen alluded to this with the notion of delegating down versus delegating up. I think what ends up happening is that you end up doing more as an entrepreneur with an executive assistant, but that more is more of what your unique ability is, right? So you are showing up in the way that is more effective, more, beneficial to the business, because you've got just the capacity and the bandwidth and the creativity and the freedom to be more in your unique ability. Well, similarly, working with your executive assistant, what you're doing is you're handing the stuff that's outside of your unique ability to somebody who that's their unique ability. And so, again, you think, okay, scheduling or arranging the hotel room or looking at the flights or organizing the team on a project, you say all of that is dreadful work to you, maybe because it's not in your unique ability. Imagine the creativity, imagine the energy, imagine the focus that comes to those sorts of activities and how good they could be when it's in somebody's unique ability, right? So just because it's not in yours doesn't mean it isn't in somebody else's. And so that's a that's a big mindset shift, and it takes time for people to get to, but that's where you begin to get the 10x growth. That's where the tension between freedom and growth begins to dissolve. And that's really what the book is all about, is how do we get there? How do we get from super stressed in the resignation stage to the transformation that happens in the superpowered stage?
Yes.
So there's this quote in the book. It's from Dan Sullivan, I think. And it says, "I'm in charge, but not in control." Like, my eyes got real big when I read that in the book. I'm on a plane on my way back from Maui with my wife about a week ago. And I'm reading the book, and I saw that, and I was like, that perfectly describes why this works so well. Because I am in charge, but Alice really is in control of our relationship.
Wow.
Like, she manages me. When she came on board as my executive assistant, I weighed 220 pounds, and I told her, hey, I want you to hold me accountable to going to the gym. And so literally in 18 months, in part due to her accountability, like, I've been able to drop 60 pounds.
Yeah.
It's not the only reason, but like, I'm healthier.
Right.
My mental clarity is better because of that. I sleep better because of that. I'm a better husband and father. I'm likely more enjoyable to be around.
You're not as good of a hugger, but
okay.
That's all right.
Well, you can't have it all, I guess.
I gotta hop in with a story as well. In the exact same vein, we had a client who was so stressed when we first met him that he had this habit of rubbing his temple, right? And he would just sort of stress, that would be how he would express stress. And we didn't realize this at the time, but there was a pulse spot there. And it was because he was just constantly rubbing at his temple.
Wow.
We come and check in with him at the 6-month mark with his assistant, and the hair is regrown. And like, he's literally just stopped that, habit behavior of rubbing at his temple. And so, we're adding an additional line of business, hair regrowth experts. We think that there's a lot of upside for us in that opportunity.
But it wasn't only just that, but like, I had to give up control of a lot of things.
Right.
I gave up control of my calendar, which was way harder than I thought, even though I hate dealing with my calendar.
Right.
And there was a period of time there where, she would almost side eye me sometimes.
Because you put something on the calendar?
Yeah, because I touched the calendar, and she's like, I really need you not to do that. She was way more polite and gracious about it. But it took me a while to actually give up control of that, because I felt kind of like a pompous jerk when somebody would email me asking for a meeting, and I would respond with, hey, I'm going to ask my executive assistant to jump in here and schedule something for us.
Right.
It took me a long time before I was comfortable doing that.
Right. Right.
Like I'm some big shot kind of thing. You know? And there was that. She's, she cleans out my email. We've talked about this before, but she schedules my haircuts. She schedules my date night with the wife. She schedules my trips with my kids that I take on an annual basis. She gets in there and does all of that stuff.
Right.
Like, she actually has control. I had to get to the point where I was willing to give up control of that stuff. And because I've done it, I'm free to do the things I'm best suited to do.
Right.
And it just...
That makes me think about, like, them having access to all your emails and all that information. I would imagine that trust is probably a big pain point that people coming to you guys at first are like, how can I trust this person? And even when it comes to what you said about the calendar, one of it was letting go or feeling kind of pompous, with the emails of, hey, let's get my executive assistant. But the other thing too, it's like a big part of that seems like it's because you don't want to let go of it because it's hard to trust that it's going to take care of itself, right? Not so much that you don't trust Alice, but more so trusting that by not touching it and by not looking at it, it's going to be okay, right? I would imagine that's a big pain point. Can you all speak to that at all? And at what moment does it seem like people seem to click or transition into letting go, as well as trusting that it's the best decision to do that?
We see this actually in a few different ways show up. So one of them is, I don't want to be perceived, right? So I don't want to be perceived by the team. I don't want my clients to think, right? The big mindset shift there is like really getting clear on the impact that that's causing. What is not getting done that's important, that moves things forward because you're doing these things that aren't your unique ability, right? So you're exerting all this fuel, all this friction just to get an okay result, right? And then, by the way, because you've used all the energy, now you show up for your team member or that VIP client that you didn't want to think was a pompous jerk. But when you have the right person, you show up prepared, you show up present, you show up like on your game, professional, right? But a lot of times when entrepreneurs first reach out to us, they're in that like zone. And so it's a little bit of a death grip. And it's just like anything else. You've got monkey bars, and you've got to get really clear on that freedom too. I don't know if y'all can see my hands here, but you got to get really clear on where you want to go if you're going to let go of that monkey bar and swing for the next one, right? And so what we do with our curriculum coaching community is we create an environment to support that entrepreneur, not just to get really clear on the next bar they need to reach for that freedom and growth, but like we come alongside and help them through those monkey bars so they don't get stuck and fall down, right? That's how Ryan said we ended up in the coaching of entrepreneurs business. But what we found is it's not a microwave, right? We're in an instant world. Everybody wants something instant, right? Or they come to us in desperation. They want freedom and growth tomorrow. So it is a crock pot. Great relationships take time. And so we help people through that. But we turn that crock pot on high with intentionality, with our structure, with our process, and with the community we built. Mm-hmm. The other way it goes up is it's actually working well enough that I've got enough pain removed that now I'm afraid to let go. Sometimes we identify in the relationship where, yes, it's working, but we know there's so much more. We have to come to the entrepreneur and say, hey, we don't think this is actually working. We actually don't think this is the right match. We would suggest that we rematch you with someone else. And they want a death grip. Now the person before they couldn't let go of email to, now they can't let go of that person again for the possibility of something better, right? So it cuts both ways. I think it's a human nature thing, especially for entrepreneurs, because we're so good. When we start the business, we did everything. We had this vision and we went out and we had to maybe at times. If we didn't have funding or something, we had to. But that doesn't have to be the case forever. So we got to just chip away at it, turn that crock pot on high, and just slowly move people towards that freedom and growth.
Yeah. It sounds like throughout the whole process, you all there to stir the crock pot, taste it, add some seasonings where needed, rather than just letting them stew.
That's it. Can I steal that? That's really good.
Please.
Yeah,
please, you can.
That was well done.
Well, I said crock pot. I yes-anded the crock pot.
Then you buttoned it up with stew.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really good.
How often, just curious, how often are your clients or entrepreneurs, how often do you have to do a rematch? You know, where you're in that first 90 days. How often is the match not right at first?
It's a great question. So I'll tell you that there are a lot of times that we're in the first 30 days and somebody's concerned about the match, right? And that's perfectly natural. That's perfectly normal. And so there's an element of, I hear you. I understand why you're thinking that way. Let's see if we can make improvement where we need to, because actually what we see is you're on track relative to where we see the other relationships forming. So that's the first thing, is like knowing the distinction, the color shades of difference between this is a bad match and this is a match that is on track. It just doesn't feel that way today, right? I would say less than 5% overall are actually ending up in a rematch situation in that first 90 days, where we were like, you know what, let's not settle for good here. Let's go for great.
Wow.
You've seen the transformation in just working with this person for the first 90 days. Imagine how much more you could get out of the relationship. Our goal, if it looks like it's headed to rematch, we hold on really tightly at that moment, because we want to make sure that we get in there as quickly as it makes sense, begin that rematch process, and sort of rip the Band-Aid off when it becomes clear that that's the direction we're going to go. We don't want to lose momentum when you're bought in on this change that is possible. And then we just need to find the right person who's compatible from a skills or personality perspective for you to realize all the freedom and growth that's possible.
Less than 5%. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's crazy good.
Crazy good.
Yeah. Crazy good. Yeah.
It goes back to it goes back to what Ryan mentioned too. I mean, it's not a made up number, although it sounds made up. 100 applicants to a typical one hire, right? I mean, and then on top of that, there are knockouts all along the way before they actually start day one, in regards to some of the training and stuff like that. So there's just a whole lot of thought goes into it. Bo, you probably remember this, but even early in the days, we also train the assistant to take the leadership role early. So they may be asking you about your favorite vacation, but they're taking notes about how does Bo like to travel? What flight does he travel? So everything is scripted with intentionality behind it. And that is to forge that relationship, turn that crock pot up on highest, and get it cooking as fast as we can.
Especially in those first 90 days, we do these daily syncs, and for me and Alice, it's every morning at 9 a.m. These syncs, like the sync we had this morning, she takes me through my day. Here's what to expect. Here's your meetings and we go over my to-do list.
Did you work out today?
She absolutely still asks me that every morning, and I did not this morning. Just if you're curious. And at first, those first 90 days, she would ask me a question. There would be one question. It was kind of an icebreaker, and they framed it, and this is really what it was. It was helping us build our relationship, but it was also helping her learn me.
Yeah.
And so they feel just like relational icebreaker questions.
Right.
But it's really giving her great information that she can use to anticipate for me later on.
Yeah.
Which I didn't realize was going on when it was happening.
Sure.
And I also don't realize the point where she stopped asking me those questions. I don't remember when that happened. Maybe that was day 91. I don't know. I didn't even notice, I don't think, until just now. But
that's not, and I assume that you all train your executive assistants to do that.
That would be my guess. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So smart.
They also have like he's mentioned community a couple times.
Yeah.
They have this community where a handful of times I'll be like, hey, can we do this? Or can Notion, like we've implemented Notion because they use Notion and I really, really dug it. And so Notion kind of runs our company now, or we use it to help run our company. But I still really don't know how to use it very well.
Yeah.
Like Alice makes it work,
Right.
And so sometimes I'll be like, hey, can we make Notion do this? And she'll be like, well, let me check. And she'll jump in the Slack community and ask some of the others.
Right. Oh, wow.
And so there's like this pool of knowledge and experience and wisdom that she can draw from. Like she's not on an island trying to help me.
Right.
Not just a single brain, but a collective mind. Because all of us being super focused on growth-minded entrepreneurs means all of our assistants are supporting growth-minded entrepreneurs, right? So it's just a great community to lean into. And on top of that, we're constantly adding additional training and refreshing their mindset so they can grow along. So Alice can grow along with Bo so that as he's growing, he doesn't outgrow the relationship, right? And so what does that look like? Well, AI is all the rage. Like what's some show and tell? Assistants have show and tell about different ways they're using, technology, ChatGPT, other platforms, right? What's out there? And so they're constantly learning and growing as well, and right alongside the entrepreneur.
Gotta get me one of those.
What now? Beyond like just giving up control and allowing the executive assistant to lead the relationship, which is such a comfortable place for me now. What are some of the other things that you hear your EAs complaining about their entrepreneurs, or I should say, they wish their entrepreneurs would do differently?
They wouldn't phrase it as a complaint,
right? I shouldn't use that word.
Be careful. I would be careful to say that nobody's complaining, which I'm grateful for, because genuinely the spirit of servant leadership that our team brings, I am truly in admiration of. I think that the hardest things sometimes are endemic to just working with entrepreneurs in general, right? Some decisions take a long time and some decisions are really fast, and it's kind of hard to figure out sometimes from less context why were some decisions super fast when they felt like big decisions and others were super slow. I think executive assistants work really hard and get a lot of training on trying to figure out the why of the behavior of an entrepreneur. We're kind of a different animal entirely, right? We don't act in totally predictable ways sometimes. And so we have a lot of conversation tools and a lot of project management tools that we use internally to try to figure out, okay, how can we help the entrepreneur just verbalize where their head is at? Like, why is a project continuing to not be able to move forward? Is it that we need to break it down into smaller chunks? Is it that there's a decision or a worry that you haven't verbalized to me that is causing you to hold up that I could potentially help bring resources to, right? There's just a lot that's going in on our heads. And while I would love to have like the perfect brain sync device so we could all be on the same page all the time, it takes a lot of time sometimes, even late into the relationship, just to have those alignment conversations and say, look, if I take a step back, if I think about it, like, here's what's bothering me about a situation, or here's what's holding me back from making, taking decisive action. And I think the tendency or the risk is that people will write their own story about what, why that's happening. And so I think our executive assistants sometimes will say, is it an inadequacy or a failing in me? I'm worried that I'm not enough to help my entrepreneur be successful. Something's going on that doesn't feel right. How can I get better and grow that relationship? And we often just have to kind of help train them on the entrepreneurial mindset and how that shows up in weird ways sometimes.
Well, I was just going to say I should probably communicate better with Alice on what's rolling around in the back of my head.
Oh, right.
Than just what I'm thinking about in the moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's 100%. Always room for growth.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, they because they want to support you. And that really goes into a way that I want to acknowledge that you're doing really well, Bo. And if there's maybe an unspoken hope and a real, cape flying day for a lot of our team is when the entrepreneur lets them into their personal world. You talked about Alice and how she's involved in planning, not just your work related stuff. They want to support, they love supporting you as a person. For a lot of entrepreneurs, that's really like uncomfortable at first. And that's a mind shift opportunity that they can, the same creativity they use to win their best clients, surprise, surprise, can be used to keep their best clients at home, like their wife and their kids and, all those fun things. So that's a really big unlock that, you've already spoken to and you're doing a great job in. But I think there's just that opportunity that most entrepreneurs, it's a complete blind spot for them. And by the way, a way to get exponential value out of the relationship, right?
Well, I remember the first time I thought, man, I'm going to have her schedule a date night.
Yeah.
With me and Autumn.
Yeah.
And I was like, do I get credit for initiating if I have her do it? But what happened was the date actually happened.
Right.
And so often it wouldn't, because I would have the thought and then I'd get distracted and it would just never happen.
Right.
Right. So it actually happened. So net positive from the jump.
Right.
But I also showed up closer to the best version of myself.
Right. Yeah.
Because I didn't have to burn bandwidth on the details.
Right. So you can be more present there with your wife on the date night.
Totally. So it was great. And I think, especially with our dad, who separated family and business so well.
Yeah.
In my mind, there's not much of a distinction. Autumn assists in our business. My kids are interested in the business. Alice certainly helps me in every way in the business and on them. But there's not that clean break with me that I saw in Dad. And so it is just natural for her to help on the personal side. And frankly, I think I could do better handing over control of more of that.
Yeah.
To Alice. But yeah, it's such a net positive, but it was a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Right. Now, you all have mentioned Superpowered a couple times, the book that you have that has just come out. Bo, of course, is getting through it, and I know that's going to be my next read. But it really is. My question is, who should buy that book? Is it about getting an executive assistant, or it almost sounds like it's beyond that?
It is about entrepreneurs who want to make mindset shifts to be able to get the most out of unique ability teamwork possible, right? And I think that entrepreneurs in general need help getting more into their unique ability and less into the things that they might be good at. I mean, it's easy to get rid of the stuff that you're really bad at and the stuff that like you just absolutely pull your hair out. Like those are the first to go. It's the stuff that you're kind of good at that is sometimes the hardest to let go, and it gets in the way of doing what only you can do. And so what we really wanted to do is create a book that, sure, it's about executive assistants, it's about going and getting an executive assistant, it's about how to get the most out of that relationship, but it's really about how to be a more effective delegator and how to get freedom and growth in your business. And we think that an EA is a part of that picture, but of course, freedom and growth comes from a variety of hires, right? I mean, it is part of building a strong culture and a strong organization that allows everybody to do their best work.
Any of you all that are listening right now that are like, oh, I got to schedule a discovery call right now. You know, if or you're having a hard time pulling the trigger to even do that, just go grab that book. Go grab that book, read that book. And
one of the things that we do is we have, if you go to superpoweredbook.com, you can download all the resources that we referred to in the book as well. You don't even have to go buy the book to get the resources. If you want to get the book and then get the resources, then get the book. Either way, superpoweredbook.com is going to have tools from Strategic Coach. It's going to have internal training tools that we use at Superpowers, onboarding tools that we use at Superpowers. It's got a whole package of resources that we use in the real world.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Anybody that's interested in learning more about Superpowers and getting an executive assistant, you want to set up that call, you can go to superpowershq.com/commercially speaking. Let them know that you came from hearing this in this podcast. You all, any final things to say to anybody who's on the fence?
I mean, what I would just share is don't settle for faux freedom. Like a lot of times I see, and it just kills me, I see these entrepreneurs that really aspire for great things, and they have all the capability in the world, but somewhere along the way, they settle and they start to just give up on the dream, and a great vision becomes a good enough vision, right? And so just don't settle for faux freedom. You had a reason that you started your business. Go get it. Go get it.
Yeah, that's a great word. Ryan, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say don't let broken promises and burnout stop you from achieving what your dreams are in your business. We talk so often to folks who are at the lowest of the lows because they feel like they're letting everyone, including themselves, down. And it doesn't have to be that way.
I mean, entrepreneurs have so many things that they're juggling.
You know what entrepreneurs are really great at?
What?
Creating work.
Yeah. Yeah.
The more success they have, the more work they create.
Right.
And the first hurdle, I think, for an entrepreneur is to realize that I don't have to do all that work. But if we don't like give up control, then it ends up landing on our plate. And like Stephen was talking about earlier, we become the bottleneck of our own business.
Right.
Because, man, we can create work.
Yeah, but let go of it and create the work that really matters that you can be efficient in.
Well, the work needs to get done. It's just not you that needs to do it.
Right.
In my entire career, the relationship I have with Alice is the single highest leverage relationship I have, especially on the business side, and surprisingly more than I anticipated on the personal side. You know, I have people ask me if Alice has a sister.
Right,
because they hear me talk about Alice and they want one like Alice.
Everybody wants an Alice, yeah, or an Amber.
You can't have Alice.
Or a Vern. Y'all, thank you so much for coming on. This has been extremely eye-opening for me as well. Like we've talked to Alice, we've talked through your experience of it, but hearing it from you guys has just really been eye-opening. And to see your passion for this, you're just not you're more than a middleman between unlocking a whole variety of things for entrepreneurs. You really, really care. That really shows. So thank you so much for coming on and talking with us about this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, guys. And we appreciate how passionate you all are in your podcast about, being able to achieve freedom and growth. That's, I think, what we all share in our, our respective journeys is a desire to be more free and have greater growth. And so it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Stephen, where are you at right now? You said you're out of the country.
Oh, not out of the country. I'm in the country. Just to Ryan, I'm in a different world. We're just north of Dallas. I'm inside an old barn. So.
Oh, gotcha. You're out in the country.
That's right.
Yeah. I see. Well, anybody listening right now, get that book, Superpowered. You can go to superpoweredbook.com for that. If you're interested in getting an executive assistant and setting up that discovery call, superpowershq.com/commercially speaking. Bo and I also have a newsletter that goes out every single Thursday. Well, Bo does. We do, because I'm on this. A free newsletter. You can sign up. It comes out every Thursday. It's got articles curated for negotiation, business, commercial real estate, and beyond. As well as you'll never miss a podcast episode. You can subscribe at subscribe.wgbarron.com.
That's it.
That's right. And we have new episodes every single Monday. If you've gotten any kind of value out of this, by subscribing, dinging that bell on YouTube, leaving comments, sharing anything that you have found valuable with other people and letting people know, as well as even writing a review on Apple Podcasts. That means so much to us, and it really helps us get the word out and spread, because we are really focused on you, the listener, the broker, the one who's interested in investing and wanting to have more freedom in their life. The algorithm doesn't always favor those super niche things, and so you sharing, leaving comments, that really helps us out a great deal.
It does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else, Bo?
Well, just Ryan, Steven, thanks so much for coming on. I've been looking forward to this for months as we've had this planned, and love the book. And look forward to seeing you again soon.
Been our pleasure, man.
Yeah. Now, before we all go, we all have to say goodbye to Alice. At the end of every episode, we say, bye, Alice. Brother, I love you.
All right. Love you too, man.
Bye, Alice.
Bye.
There she is.